Welcome to Tranquilly Coding. This is our sixth video of the series. In our previous videos, we have learned how to set up the project with Appwrite in Android and also create a singleton MVVM structure and then user registration and user login. This has been quite some time. I have taken like a week break or something. So now we are going to learn about session and logout. So we have learned how to register the user, how to log in with email password. Now how to log out from there and what is session, how session works in Appwrite, everything about that. So previously we have done so far. Let's see what have we done. So in here our email was email@john.com and we set the password for 12345678. Yes, login successful. So now we need to use it and send it to the next page where the main content will be. So let's first create another activity that will take us when we successfully log in from there. Let's name it main activity. It is not a launcher activity. Okay. So in our login fragment, when we sign in with the user login details, so we get the session when a user is logged in. So now let's check what the login does. So it's login. After login, we get the session. So also at the same time, we will try to get the user as well. Why the user? Because the user contains all the other details that is related to this user ID and everything. So from the login, let's go to the login fragment. So when we are logged in, we have if it is null, we will see a toast like login failed if the email password is incorrect. And if it is not null, the login is successful, then a toast. And from here, we are just getting the user ID. So let's see what else we can get from there. So let's go to the API references, and in here, the account system. So get account. So this is for get the currently logged in user. So when we are logged in, we get a session, and we also get a account dot get that and then if when we are logged in, we get a session, and then if we call the account dot get, we will return a user model that we previously created. Let me remind you. So this is the user model that Appwrite has. This is the user map of string and any. This is the whole details of this user class. You will find it under io.appwrite.models. This is the user packages. So let's first call when the user is logged in. Let's call the user details as well. So let's create the repository. This is the create account and login. Let's create the get account. So get account, and in here we also will be using the code is already given. Let's create from the scratch. So we need the account instance as well using the client, and we will try to do this. So this is like account.get, just that, and this method will return the user map of string and any. This is that thing, and we will post this variable, this user variable, to the post value of the main user mutable data. And if something gets wrong, we will post null. Now let's add it to the view model and test how it works. So fun get account, and the account is here. Now let's try to log in and add another function here. So let us delete this. Login successful, we will show it later. So now using the view model, Appwrite view model, get account. And when we call the when we have the session, we already have the user logged in, and then we will try to get the current user. So let's observe this variable as well. So user dot observe, and this is the lifecycle owner, as it is the fragment, not the activity. If the activity was the activity, then we will use this as a context here. Lifecycle owner will be this. The context will work as that. So now the login failed. If the user is null, it will return that, but we don't need that. We will not check for the fail here, because if the user exists, it will not be null. So now we will show login successful, and we will make a toast to main activity. So let's make it start activity intent, and we will get from here require context to main activity class dot java, and we want to finish this activity. So require activity dot finish. That's it. So what we have done, we will take the email and password from the user from this input field, and then on clicking the signing button, we will send the view model for the login method. So the login method will then log in the user and post the session to the session mutable live data, and we will observe the session. If the session is null, that means the password and email is somehow wrong. It will show this toast, and if it is correct, that means user logged in. Then we will try to get the user details. So for the user details, we will call the Appwrite viewModel.get account. Get account will call this account.get method, which will return the user variable, the user model, and we will post it under the user live data. So then we will observe the user, and if the user data is not null, it will not be null, trust me. And then we will show the toast that live login successful, and we will start an intent to main activity. So let's design the activity a little bit. Let's use a linear layout and just put everything in center. This is a demo text view. Let's put it as a username, and let's copy it as logout button. Logout. Let's put it under black color. This username as this color. Let's put a margin top as like 40 dp maybe. Reduce the text size by like 15. Yeah, 15 is good. So now we can test if this works or not. Let's delete the text so it will be blank, and the logout text. So what we will try here, we want to show the name of the user. Let's add the email as well. Email, so text, and we don't want it to be bold. Email. Okay, so we have the user email and the logout button. Let's go to the activity and use binding. So this is the view binding, auto completed by Copilot. Thank you, and done. And now we need to add the view model over here. So in here, this is where is the view model in the fragment. So this is our view model. We need to change a little bit. That will be view model, and we want to import the the coin one, this one org.coin. So the view model is injected here. Now we want to check if we get the session and the user value. We first actually need the user variable. So dot user observe, and can actually collapse it like this. Okay, so if the user is not null, we need to first check that it will not be null, but we just put it there to make sure if anything goes wrong. So now we have two IDs. First is email text equals it dot email, and then name, username dot text, it will be it dot name. So when we are logged in, we can see this users. Let's try it. Let's write down this username and passwords for future users. Email @john.com, and then 1234567 8. So login, we will put this, and for password we will paste this. Then sign in, login successful, and we can see like this John.5 and email @john.com. So this is successful so far. So the data is here, so that means we have successful so far. We get the user view model, we get the user model properly. So now let's try with the logout. So after view model, we didn't create the logout. Let's create the logout. So suspension logout, and that will be the account. So right now let's create account dot delete session, and inside session ID we can put any sessions. So after it support multiple sessions for user, we can control it from the console here. So if we go to the settings, we can create the session logins, session limits for the user, probably right here. Hold on, let me check. Security, yes, session login here. So this is the default 10 limits. We can move it up or move it down. We can make it 1 so that user can only log in only one device at a time, but by default it is 10, so there will be multiple sessions. So logout means you are deleting a session. So in here, if you want to delete a session, you can put the session ID in here. So there is a session ID, and you need to put your session ID value over here like this, session ID, and you need to put the session ID value over here. So we can get the session ID from the session that we previously. So we can log out the user using the session ID. So we have the session, this is the session, and we can get the session ID from there. If we try it, session dot value dot ID, then we can actually get the session ID. But there is another simple trick to log out from this current device, and I will show you right now. So in the API reference, delete session, if we go to the delete session, this one, so if you put the current as the string of the session ID, then it will log out from this current device. So we don't need to pass this session ID. For example, if a user has like 10 sessions, so maybe 2 sessions, so first one ID is that, second one ID is that, third one is that. So if you want to log out from this session, you can put this session over here, and that will log out the user from there. If you want to log out from this session, you can put it right there, and that will log out from there. So for example, this one is our current session. So if you want to log out from there, you can put it, or you can just simply write down current, and now this will log out the user from this session. So it will log out the user, and it will also set the session to null, and if the session is null, then the user will be null as well. So we will post value the user null as well, and the session, it will not cause any exception if the user is logged in, but if it is, we will still be setting it as null. So this is our logout method. Let's add it to the view model. So fun logout, and yes, this is done. So now in the main activity, let's create the logout thing. So binding dot logout conflict listener appwrite.logout, and when the user is logged out, then we want the user to go back to the login activity, or maybe this welcome fragment that we created, the login register activity, the main page. So let's do that. Start activity intent this to login register and finish. So when it is logged out, it will go to the login register activity. Let's try it again. So I have written down the email password before, and I have maybe removed the comment. Let's pull out the clipboard. Yes, and the password. I will not delete it again. Okay, it is saved over there. It is so it is saved. It was saved. Login successful. Let's log out. Okay, it came back to the home page, and we got a bug that is saying login failed, but we didn't try to log in. So how it is doing? Let's check. So in the login fragment, when we open up, let's close everything and open up again. So right now the session has no value, but when we log in and log out, then the session, we set the session as null. When it is null, it will show the login failed, and when it is not null, it will show login successful and go to the next activity. So when you're logging out, we're going back to the home page of login register, the welcome fragment. So in the login fragment, the login failed shows again because the session is null. But we don't want to show the login failed if the user is not trying to log in, because you haven't entered your email password. So how can we get rid of these things? There is a simple trick. If we check if the username or like email and password field is blank or not, if it is not blank, then the user is logged out and not trying to log in. So let's do that. If binding dot, yes, so if the session is null and is not empty and is not empty, that will do this. So if the email field and password field has something, then if the session failed, we can say that login failed. Other than that, it will not show again anything. Let's try it again. So we log in, we put the email password, we sign in. It's taking some time. Let's click again. Okay, login successful, log out. So we are signing in, login failed, rate limit for the current endpoint has been exceeded. Okay, so I have tried to log in lots of times, and now it is giving me rate limit. Let's check what happened on the console. So let's go to this users tab. Let's see if we can have the sessions. Yes, there is 3 sessions. So we haven't logged out, but we logged in several times. Let's try again. Rate limit. Okay. Okay. So move further to let's move further. Let's give it some time. So it is logged out, logged in. This thing is done so far. Now we have another thing, that is every time we are trying to go into the app, we need to log in. If the user is already logged in, still we need to log in with the username and password like this. But we don't want that. If the user is already logged in, then we want him to automatically go to the app. So from the splash screen, we can do this stuff. So let's do it. So first we need to get the session. We already have that set up in here. The session ID current will return the current session. So this is get account. Let's create a get session. Suspend fun get session, and that will get us the current session. So get session, and the session ID will be current, and this will give us the current session. If the user is logged in, his credential is correct, then it will logged in. So let's add it into view model. Fun get session, and get session is done. So we want it inside the splash screen, because from the splash screen, if the user is logged in, we don't want to hassle him to go into the next activity. So we have our view model. So appwrite view model dot get session, then appwrite view model dot session observe this, and then this. So if the session is correct, if it equals to null, then we want to send him to the login registered activity. That's it. And if not null, then we will try to get the user details. So get account, then we will try to get the user details, and if the user details is not null, then we will log in the user to main activity, else we will send the user for login registration. Let's try and see what happens. I'll explain you the details later. Okay, so get account, there is no get account, that means there is no user. Let's login successful. Now let's exit the app completely, and we will run it again. So our app's name is Appwrite project, and the user is logged in without any login screen. That means we can get the session. So in the splash screen, we will try to check if the user is already logged in or not. Okay, so now we have no sessions. Let's run the app. So it will look for session. There is no session. So we'll go to the login page, paste the email and password, we sign in, login successful. We close this app completely. We open the app again, and login successful without going to the login page. Let's try again. We are logged back in. Yes, we are logged in. We don't need to use any handler in the splash screen anymore. It will take only that much time that is required for this 2 API calls to be handled. And now let's log out. So log out is done. If we want to log back in, so now if we exit the app, it will ask us to log in because the session is deleted. So this is the session and logout things. You can simply call these codes delete session, session ID is current, and login back without entering the password is get session, and session ID is current, and get the current user using account.get. So this is for today. I'll see you in the next video, probably about user data or email verification, this kind of account related stuff, and we will go to the database later on. So thank you. Have a good day.